What's up, fellow music nerds? Matrix here, and you were locked into the Matrix Music Review Podcast, the only place to get your fix for alternative music. And we are back with a normal review week. I know I took 2 weeks and did some fun things for you guys. I know everybody's been loving the mid-year tier list, been loving the video game podcast, and I'm excited about that. That, allows me to keep putting out some more creative ideas, and hopefully y'all continue to connect with that. But in the meantime, head on over to Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok and follow us at Matrix Music Review. Head on over to Spotify and like the playlist. It'll be linked in the description of this episode, and I constantly update it with all the new music that's out and everything that I'm listening to, even if it's not talked about on the podcast. And as I always do, I say continue to share this podcast with your friends, your family, anybody that might like the alternative music scene, and continue to grow our little community here. Got a pretty big week this week because I'm obviously going to catch up on some of the releases that I haven't talked about. So we got a couple of albums, a bunch of singles that I'm going to talk about, and then we got a bunch of tours to talk about as well that have been announced in the past few weeks. So we're going to jump right in with our album reviews and start with Join the Club from As December Falls. A really exciting band for me to talk about because they're a band that I've been watching for the past couple of months, just kind of have this upward trend in their momentum with the releases that they've had, and this album definitely kind of cements their place in this scene for me. It is a very energetic, up-tempo pop punk sound, and a lot of people are going to ask, what do they sound like? If you're looking for a comparison, it's right along the lines of Against the Current, Honey Revenge, Paramore. They definitely have a little bit of that in them, but they are very unique in their own way in their sound. And that's what I love about bands nowadays, is you can say that they are for fans of Honey Revenge or whoever, but they all have their own unique style that you have to take a listen to really understand and appreciate the music that they're putting out. And in that respect, this album is a very strong entry into the scene, and it's more punkish than, let's say, a Honey Revenge. They might fall more on the pop side, but that just makes it very unique in its own way, as I said earlier. I love on this album how they really turn up the energy even more so than what they already have on a song like Carousel. It's one of my favorites. It's got such a catchy chorus. It's one of those that gets in your ear. It's an earworm that it'll have you singing all day long. So that is definitely one of my favorites. And it really flows perfectly into the next song, Mayday, which is another high energy, angsty sounding song that really just hammers home that pop punk sound that we really all know and love. Another one of my favorites off of this album was I Can't Sleep. And the lyricism in the chorus of this one is incredible. It's got a line in there that says, I'm running for the hills and you're only here for the cheap thrills. And it's just that little wordplay that really captured my attention and made me realize, okay, this is a lot of lyricism in a song like this. And this is something to really pay attention to throughout the rest of the album and throughout re-listens when I go back and listen to these. And that was the fun part of this album, is that I caught so many different things upon re-listen that I was so glad that that's kind of my method here. And a song like Home is, the only way I can describe it is that it's hauntingly beautiful. It's kind of got a little bit of an eerie sound to it. And I love the line in there that says, you need to feel his heart before it scatters from the chest through the bones. It's a feeling that I loathe. And, a lot of times people don't pay that much attention to the wordplay, but in a song like that, it is very poetic. We talk about different rhyme schemes, different templates like that, whatever you want to call it, but this is a song that I love, songs that can almost read like a poem. Like if you take the music away and you just put these words on a sheet of paper, this song reads perfectly like a poem. And that's why I love music in general, but especially some of the pop punk music and emo music and whatever you want to call this scene, this alternative music scene that I talk about. There's a lot more than meets the eye, and that's why I love talking about it and kind of pointing these things out so that people can really see, hey, there is a lot of behind these songs. So love Home from As December Falls here. Overall, this album was really, really solid. As I said at the beginning, it's one of those albums, it's very compact. It's 10 tracks. It doesn't feel like it's too long, doesn't feel like it's too short. It's kind of the perfect length. Rating wise, it's definitely in the top tier. I would say probably a 7.3 out of 10 if I'm going to give it a rating. I'm going to try to start giving you guys ratings too, as opposed to just saying, oh, it's very solid, oh, it's really good. Try to get some ratings in there to quantify it. So, 7.3 out of 10 I think is fair. It's really strong. It's one of my favorites that I've listened to in the past couple of weeks, and it really just kind of leaves me wondering what the next direction and what the next step is here for As December Falls, and I look forward to hearing it. So if you haven't checked it out yet, go check out Join the Club from As December Falls. Next up, we have the new EP, Childhood Eyes from Yellowcard. So immediately you have to appreciate that we're getting new music from Yellowcard. I think if you were like me and you were a big fan of Yellowcard, I don't think any of us really expected them to get back together, much less tour, put out new music, and I'll talk about it a little bit at the end, but I did catch them on their 20th anniversary tour for Ocean Avenue. I touched on it a little bit in, I think it was the video game podcast that, I was able to go see this, but I'll give it a little bit of a review at the end of this podcast. But it is so great to hear them back and putting together music and putting out new music. And I think the initial song, the Pierce the Veil collaboration, I think that one's fine. I don't know that you lead with that right off the bat on your EP. I think Childhood Eyes probably would have been a smarter choice there, but nonetheless, it's a pretty fine song. I think my favorite off of this has to be Hiding in the Light. It's a classic Yellowcard sound, a classic pop punk sound. It is everything you want, lyrically, musically. You get just this basic chorus of "you're hiding in the light and I'm drowning in the dark," and it's just those little twists that you hear that really just make you appreciate why Yellowcard has been such a staple in this scene for so many years, and why so many people were so excited to hear that they were back, because they're different. You don't hear bands do what Yellowcard's doing or what they've done. I mean, we don't have many bands that have violin in them anymore. I mean, it's just kind of unheard of. So to get Yellowcard back in the scene is always going to be something that I looked forward to and that I was excited about. Honest from the Jump is another perfect follow-up to that Hiding in the Light song that I just talked about. It's basically a song that talks about being so close to love, and you're just not getting there because that person wasn't honest with you from the start. And I think that's kind of different. It's a little bit different to hear that, we were so close to love, but it was because the other person wasn't honest. Usually there's some sort of other phenomena that takes place that causes us to not reach that love state. And so to hear a little bit of a twist on that from Yellowcard was awesome to hear. Obviously, it sounds great. And then the album ender with Dashboard Confessional is different. It's an introspective look at 20 years and what they've done in the past 20 years since Ocean Avenue came out, and looking at, is this the right way? Take me back so I can look at this. And, I love that. I love that they're able to look back and really appreciate what they've done in the past 20 years and just kind of the mark that they've left in music and this scene. I mean, it's awesome to hear that from Yellowcard. EPs are hard because they're kind of short and you never know what it's going to sound like. They might not all sound the same. So I'm going to do EPs out of 5 as opposed to 10 like I do with albums. I think this is a 4 out of 5 for me. Very strong EP. So much fun to have Yellowcard back in the scene. So if you haven't checked it out yet, go check out the new EP from Yellowcard, Childhood Eyes. Next album is Evergreen from PVRIS. So this one is one that immediately the first thing that jumps out to me is the crisp vocals on this album. I mean, the production is just so clean on this. And this is an album that I'm not going to have a whole lot to say about because I really can't wrap my head around it, to be honest. And I can't wrap my head around it because of the blending of so many different genres here that it's hard for me to really discuss any one track in particular. It's hard for me to really put into words how I felt about it. I really, really enjoyed this album. It was so much fun to listen to. But it's so hard because of the blend. On a song like Animal, I loved it. The music on that is so different from anything else that we're hearing in this scene right now. And that just has to do with the great production choices that PVRIS has put on this. I really liked a song like Sentimental. And that's a wordplay thing. It says, I'd go mental, but it's psychocentral. Like, it's just so wordy on this album too. This was another one that, when I went back and listened to it a few different times, I still couldn't wrap my head around it, but I was catching different lyrical things each time. It's such a clean album. That's the best way I can describe it, is clean and crisp. And, I love PVRIS to begin with as an artist. So this was exactly what I was looking for in an album like Evergreen. So I'm going to kind of stop talking about it now. In terms of my rating, I'd say it's probably a 7.5, 7.6 out of 10. It was that good. I just really don't know how to put into words what I felt about this album. And, I'm going to continue to listen to it, see if I can get a better review on it. But man, it was really strong. If you haven't checked it out yet, go check out Evergreen from PVRIS. Next up, we got the debut EP from People Are Ugly. It's a self-titled EP for People Are Ugly. The album opener here, or EP opener, I should say, really reminded me, and I don't know why, it really reminded me of Hollywood High 16 from Pop Tropica Sluts. And that's just something that I really connected with. I love the sound on that Pop Tropica Sluts song. And so when I heard that, what sounded to me like it's obviously not the same, but what sounded to me like that on this People Are Ugly track, I loved it, and that kind of drew me in right away. Get Over It is such a classic sounding song and story, just about this competition between a guy and a girl, and about just the competition between two guys trying to fight over this girl, and it's such a fun song. I love that one. And the lyrics in The Way I Am are so creative. Again, this was like one after another for me in terms of lyrical goodness. And honestly, on a debut EP like this from People Are Ugly, what more could you ask for, right? Like, this isn't one of those things where, we got a debut and, there were a couple good songs and, you kind of got a feel for it. No, People Are Ugly really came out of the gate swinging here. They showed us their lyricism. They showed us our musical style. We got a really good understanding of who they are and what they're trying to say. And damn, it's really good, and that's, like I said, this is all that you could ask for from a debut. It's a stunning debut from them. I'm really excited to see where they head in the future. And, in terms of ratings for this one, 4.5 out of 5 on this one. There's not going to be many perfect ratings for me, I don't think. I doubt that we'll ever get to that point, but this is damn close. This was really, really strong from them. Super excited to hear what they got. So go check out the new self-titled EP from People Are Ugly if you haven't yet. And the last album I'm going to talk about is Blackout from Ashes to New. This is definitely my favorite album of the week. And what I want to do, and this is something that I did for myself, because I think all of us know this band at this point and know that there's constant comparisons to Linkin Park. So what I did was I left those comparisons at the door. I left them out and said, let me listen with a fresh perspective and just kind of get an idea of, what From Ashes to New is all about, what they're trying to say. And man, this record is awesome. If you guys follow on Instagram, I posted last night just how much I'm enjoying listening to this record. And this is an album to me that From Ashes to New is another band that really kind of blends a lot of genres. It's a lot like the PVRIS album in the sense that you get some rapping in there, you get some heaviness in there, you get that hard rock sound in there as well. And so this album From Ashes to New is really kind of a perfect introduction for somebody if you're really trying to show them what this scene is all about. What better way to get a hip hop fan intrigued than by giving them someone that has a rapping section in it, and the rapping can give you shades of NF, right? Like, that's kind of the sound that I hear when I'm listening to the rap sections. But in terms of this, I mean, this was awesome. Looking at a song like Nightmare is a standout for me, because it's a perfect example of them at their best. The lyrics are hitting. It's got this heavy, gritty sound and gritty tone on the non-rap vocals. And then you also have the rap vocals, and it's just got the perfect amount. Sometimes when you have bands that try to do that, they try to overdo it, and they go too far with the rapping, or they go too far with the heaviness, and they're trying to blend the two, and it just doesn't work. That is the complete opposite of what happens on this From Ashes to New record. You get the perfect blend, and you get the perfect blend on a song-by-song basis as well, and that's what I loved about it. There's a moment in this song particularly, and it's the Nightmare You Became line at about 2:15, and that is one of the nastiest vocal moments of the year. And when you listen to it, you're going to understand what I mean. I have never heard a sound come out of somebody when they're not necessarily hitting that blech or they're hitting something like that This is somebody that's like scream singing and hitting a note so perfectly and with so much energy that it is just one of the top vocal moments for me of the year. I loved hearing that in here. Then you get to a song like Hate Me Too, and there's a line in there that says, love never works like the cocaine does. And, that was a line that stood out to me because I took a step back and I said, well, wait a minute. This is something that we hear all the time, right? We hear all the time in songs that love is like a drug and love is better than any drug. But From Ashes to New is basically looking at you and saying, love sucks. It's never going to reach the high that this particular drug does. And that's just so different. That's another way to look at this band and say, okay, they're really trying to say something. They're not just going to throw this line out there and be like everybody else. That's not something that you're going to hear from a lot of bands. So I really enjoyed that. And then they have other lines in there too that's like, I'm going to apologize for bleeding when you stab me in the back, and I hope you're happy about this. Like, that's from that song, Hope You're Happy. Sorry, I didn't clarify that in the beginning, but in that song, Hope You're Happy, they literally say, I should apologize for bleeding when you stab me in the back. And again, these are just lyrics and lines that, you really wouldn't expect to hear or you wouldn't be expecting. And then it hits you and you're like, whoa, hold on. This is stopping me in my tracks and making me really think here for a minute. So loved the lyricism on these songs. So lyricism was a big thing on this album, as you can tell. And there's lovesick themes all throughout, but there's also some heavy themes too that really addresses some of the mental battles that people can be struggling with or going through. And that's what I loved about this. It was so different and so deep. And when you looked at it and you listened and you actually understood what they were talking about, you can really understand what they're trying to say on this album. They're making a lot of sense for people when you listen to it. And my favorite on this album is probably a song called Barely Breathing. And it's just got little lines in there that really stood out to me. If it kills you too, then we're even. That's just a great way of saying that, you basically killed me when you did what you did to me. So if it finally catches up to you and does the same, then we're finally even. The chorus is an earworm. Now you're leaving, I'm bleeding. Like, it's just a perfect earworm. And, the final song I want to talk about here is Monster in Me. And damn, the lyrical flow in that one is insane. There's a line in there that says, my thoughts are a room that you ain't even in the basement. That's just unreal. Like, I actually listened to a lot of hip hop growing up and in high school, and the first thing that came to mind when I heard that was, that is a bar. Like, there's no other way to describe that line right there other than it's a bar. Like, there were so many moments on this album where my high school hip hop head came out and I was like, wow, this is something that I could have listened to back then and really appreciated, and it would have been a great blend. Obviously we have the Linkin Park comparisons, like I said, when you leave it at the door, because it is very different. I feel like From Ashes to New does it in their own way, and one's not better than the other. It's just very different. So overall, you can tell that I'm really high on this album. I think in terms of ratings, I'm going with an 8.5 here. This is such a strong record. This is definitely one that has been a standout for me in terms of second half of the year already. The second half of the year, I don't think we have a whole lot that's been announced in terms of albums. So it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out in terms of who jumps into my top 20, who falls out of my top 20, who improves from the first half and who from the second half really just kind of catapults into that top part. So if you haven't heard it yet, go check out the new album From Ashes to New. It's called Blackout. Wraps it up for albums this week, but we're going to talk about a few of the singles, and then there's going to be a huge playlist update for you guys to go check out. There's going to be a ton of new music on there, but I'm only going to talk about, I think, 10 singles just to kind of mention them. And the first one is Ryan and Seth from Dance No Thanks. This is a great pop punk track. It's kind of the imagining something different or imagining, a different life sound and different life theme here. And this is a new group to me. I don't know that I've ever heard from them. I've probably have in the past, but this was my first real experience with them, especially with this podcast. So go check out Ryan and Seth from Dance No Thanks. Next up is Pretend from Sessions. The Sessions boys are back with another strong entry, and I'm so excited for this band. You know, obviously, I talked about their previous song, Eat Your Tail, and, you know, this song, Pretend, from them, it might not be to the level of Eat Your Tail. I don't know that I like it as much, but, you know, it keeps pushing them forward. It keeps them on my radar and keeps them really as one of those bands that I'm really looking forward to seeing what we get, whether that's an EP, whether that's an album, you know, more singles. I'm really excited to see what we have for the rest of the year coming from Sessions. So go check out Pretend from Sessions. Next up is Not the 1975 from Knox. Knox is an artist that I'm really enjoying his sound. I talked about Love Letter in the mid-year tier list. I love that track. That's a very quick riser on my list. And he's got some wordplay in there. He had a line in this track that says, "I got jokes, but she don't show her teeth." And, you know, he's got a little bit of creativity with stuff like that. So the best way I can talk about this with Knox, too, is like, yeah, his sound may not be as heavy as some of the other stuff that I talked about. I mean, it's definitely not as heavy as the new From Ashes to New record. It's definitely not the pop punky sound of Arrows in Action. But, you know, we don't always have to, you know, headbang or, you know, hate everything or whatever it is. You know, sometimes you still need to dance and move around a little bit, and that's what an artist like Knox is doing here. So really excited to see what else he's got. Go check out Not the 1975 from Knox. Next track is Stay Up All Night from MxPx. So if you listen to my video game podcast, you know that MxPx was one of the bands that really got me into this genre. Playing Supercross 2000, their song Next Big Thing was one of the first pop punk, emo, alternative rock, whatever you want to call it, songs that really introduced me to the genre. So to hear new stuff from MxPx is always awesome. You know, it's a little bit of an evolution for them. I don't know that it's as heavy as some of their previous stuff, but it's a great step in the evolution. It still sounds really good. It still sounds very much like what they are and who they are as a band. So really excited to hear from them again. Go check out Stay Up All Night from MxPx. Next track is Might Love Myself from Beartooth. Chemistry changing, emotion rearranging. I'm out of my cage, breaking the spell. I think I might love myself. That's the chorus that we get from Beartooth in this track. And that is just such a different sound, and it's definitely a different vibe. I mean, a lot of times, I just talked about this with Knox, you know, we get songs about hating ourselves and hating everything and hating everyone else. So now Beartooth is telling us that they think they might love themselves, and that's kind of awesome to hear. You know, it's always good to hear the other side of the fence here. Beartooth's a band that I've always been interested in, especially since Riptide came out and was such a huge success. So looking forward, I think we get an album from them this year. I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that. But if we do, really looking forward to hearing that. In the meantime, go check out Might Love Myself from Beartooth. Next track is Cold Walks to the Liquor Store from Tarnish. Relatively new find for me. I really love their sound. It has an emo punk sound to that. You know, I'm looking forward to looking at them a little bit more, whether that's going back and getting some more music from what they've had on Spotify, or whether that's waiting for some new stuff to come out. If you guys haven't heard about them yet, I think y'all are going to really enjoy them if you like the rest of the music we've been talking about. So go check out Cold Walks to the Liquor Store from Tarnish. Next track is Lonely Together from Bunny and Kellin Quinn. Resident feature expert Kellin Quinn shows himself again here on this track, and holy hell, what a sound this is. You know, this is a track where the production is so clean. And, you know, Bunny was an artist that I really wasn't familiar with. And then when I looked back, I noticed that he has a DJ background. And I was like, all right, that makes sense why the production sounds so good. And, you know, I would definitely want to go back and look at this sound a little bit more. This sound was so awesome to hear and so good. And the fact that Kellin Quinn's interested obviously means that this individual has a great amount of talent. So if you haven't heard it yet, go check out Lonely Together from Bunny and Kellin Quinn. Next track is All Left Turns When on the Right Side of the Track by Maybsomeday. Another relatively new band to me, but another sound that really caught my attention right away. And the big thing that stood out to me for this is obviously because we're coming off of a podcast where I talked all about video games and retro video games, is this album artwork is so sick. This album artwork kind of shows us a vintage PlayStation 1 game case with kind of like a Gran Turismo style front. And it's just so cool to see a band really paying some homage to the old school PlayStation games. I love that from them. So if you haven't heard it yet, go check out All Left Turns When on the Right Side of the Track from Maybsomeday. Next track is Hot Girls in Hell from LøLø. What a story she's telling in this track. I think it is as angsty will get in our scene. I love the sound, and the lyrics in it are just stupid good, and I love the talent that LøLø has. So go check out Hot Girls in Hell from LøLø. And the last track we're going to talk about is Leveled Out from Imbalance. So you guys know how much of a believer I am in this band. We're getting an EP from them very soon. I'm looking forward to that. It's just another solid entry in kind of the anticipation stage before we get this EP from them. It's got the punk sound. It's got a little bit of a skate punk sound to it, and it's just so good. I'm so excited for this EP in a couple of weeks. So if you haven't heard it yet, go check out Leveled Out from Imbalance. That wraps it up for our music review this week. As I mentioned in the beginning, I'll give you guys a little bit of a review here from the 20th anniversary Ocean Avenue tour from Yellowcard. So I was actually at opening night, which was unbelievable to see. We started out with This Wild Life. They came out. They were incredible. I was not really too sure what to expect, especially coming off of that last album. I felt like it really wasn't as up-tempo as some of the other acts on the stage, but man, that was such a fun time to listen to them. Had bongo drums, conga drums, I don't remember exactly which ones they were, on the stage. They were playing those, and they were so good and so in sync. Really happy with that set. Then we got a set from A Story of the Year. Man alive, they still got it. They are so good, and Story of the Year is so impressive because of the vocals that are behind it. You know, you get those screams, you get the like softer side of the voice, and it all just kind of flows together, and it just looks so effortless, and that's what I loved about their set. Then we got a set from Mayday Parade, and you know, I don't think you can really say much about Mayday Parade and what they do. Like, Mayday Parade is so good at what they do, and they're always so much fun to watch, and everybody loves watching Mayday Parade perform, so great to see them there. And then finally, Yellowcard came out, and it was like a 2-hour long set. I mean, it was more than what I would have expected from them, more than I could have expected from them. And, you know, for this being one of their first shows in a long time, it was so good. You know, start to finish, they had a lot of energy. Ryan sounded great on vocals. Everybody sounded great musically. There were no real hiccups in terms of stage production or sound or anything like that. I mean, it was just great from start to finish. And, you know, I think if you haven't heard Yellowcard live, hearing a song like Ocean Avenue, that is such a classic, legendary song in this alternative scene, seeing it live just really makes everything that much better. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, it was so fun. Such a great concert. If you guys have a chance, go see that tour. That tour is so worth it. And tickets aren't exactly that expensive. The last time I looked, I know there's a couple of shows around me still, you know, and I'm definitely considering going back and seeing it because it was that much fun. So go check out Yellowcard on their 20th anniversary tour for Ocean Avenue if you get a chance. And lastly, we're going to talk about some of the tours that have been announced in the time that I haven't talked about new reviews. So in that time, we got a new tour announcement from Hot Mulligan. They're going to do a headlining tour with support from Heart Attack Man, Spanish Love Songs, and Ben Quad. We got a Pierce the Veil announcement for their tour with support from LS Dunes, Dayseeker, and Destroy Boys. That's a huge one. Might have to look into that one. Amorosa announced the tour with Dangerous Summer and First and Forever. We got a dual tour announcement from Memphis Mayfire and Atreyu, kind of a dual headliner thing, and they got some support from Catch Your Breath and Another Day Dawns. We had another dual headlining tour announcement from Ice Nine Kills with In This Moment, and they got support from Avatar and New Year's Day. And then we also have a final dual tour announcement from Real Friends and Knuckle Puck. So a bunch of new tours been announced. Follow along on Instagram. I post them as they're released, and I get you the dates and all that other stuff. So best way to stay in touch with us on a day-to-day basis is Instagram, and go follow us there. Keep up to date on everything. But that wraps it up for us this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. It was a lot of fun to get back into reviewing and give you guys some some of the new albums that were out, and really hopefully you enjoy this new rating system where I give it some actual numbers. I'm not doing that with singles. It would take me forever to come up with a number for those. So just continue to listen to that on the podcast and on the Spotify playlist. As always, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Matrix Music Review. Head on over to Spotify. You can follow our playlist there, Control-Alt-Save. Stay up to date on all the music, both on and not on the podcast that I've been listening to. And be sure to share this podcast with your friends, family, whoever, anybody that likes the alternative music scene. Let's help introduce them to some of these other artists that they may not know about yet, because, hey, what's better than being able to say to your friend, I knew about this band or I knew about this artist before anybody else. So, as we always do for my Spotify listeners, we're going to end this episode with a band playing us out. And this week, I got to give it to From Ashes to New and their track, Barely Breathing. See you next week.